So my name is Andreas. I'm from Hyosung, Korean company, and I'm the European marketing manager, and I have the pleasure to talk and to explain a little bit about our bio-based project together with my lovely colleague Robin from VIVE.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm the senior manager for VIVE Program, specializing in regenerative agriculture, which we'll get into a bit more detail today. And together we'll be telling the story of how we're using bio-based feedstock, i.e. from sugarcane, to produce products for Hyosung.
Thank you, Robin. So we will keep it very easy, and if you have any questions, we will do a Q&A session after this set. So let's have a quick look at the agenda. So our hosts, we have introduced ourselves. I would like to give a little introduction about Hyosung. What is it about? What kind of company is it? And then I will pass over to Robin to explain about more about the partnership we are running with VIVE at the moment on our bio-based project. And last but not least, learnings from the partnership. Feel free to ask. We will keep it short that you can attend the happy hour in time. So before I start introducing Hyosung, there are key three solutions at the moment. First of all, our circular business, our T2T business. Then I will explain a little bit about our recycled Elastane. And then I will jump to our bio-based Elastane, which is a key topic for our session today. So let's talk about Hyosung. So we are not from Japan, we are not from China. It's a Korean company, Korean-based company, headquartered in Seoul, and it's a very big company, like most of the Korean companies are. So textile is the backbone of our business, but there are other business units belonging to the Hyosung group. Like you can see here, it's very small written, chemicals, information, communication. But to summarize, the backbone of the key business is spandex production. So we are by far globally the biggest spandex producer with 10 production units globally. But then we are also focusing on polyester and on nylon with a big focus on performance products. So all our products are carrying high functional abilities and like cooling, warming, and we have a strong focus on sustainability products. I find this super confusing, that slide, but I think it gives you an overview that our company, that Hyosung, is performing globally. So as I said, we have 10 production units, a strong focus on China, but also on other production countries like Brazil, like Turkey, close to Europe, but also China, Korea, Vietnam. And you can see here, everybody's interested, I can pass that information. We have a strong, as I said at the beginning, we have a strong focus on Elastane business. So all our polyester and nylon products are produced in Vietnam and Korea, but everywhere where the garments are made, you can get our product. What is different, or what is a big advantage of Hyosung? As I said at the beginning, it's a big company, and we are integrated. We are doing a lot. Just attending here today with a booth. Maybe you have visited us here in Hall 2 on L17. That's our booth location. So we are investing a lot in publishing the company, showing our products, promoting our products. And we are holding a strong relationship on brand and retail level. So we are basically involved and connected with lot of brands and leading brands, global operating brands and retailers. Point 4 is, from my perspective, very interesting. We are running a fashion development center in our headquarters at Seoul. So We are constantly developing innovations, fabric innovations, coming back from our fibers, integrating our fibers into fabrics, and then finally into garments. So I think that's a quite interesting topic, and we know that not a lot of companies are doing that. I've explained a little bit about that before. It gives you an idea of our top focus areas. So we divided our corporations into some segments, like ready to wear, and you can see the big companies like Zara, H&M, they are all using our products. We have special products in the denim category. So here we are also working with the leading denim companies. Intimates, it's for sure, you know, it's especially Elastane. It's a very important part of Intimates collections. Activewear, Adidas, New Balance, Under Armour. So we are cooperating very, very strongly, very close with these companies. And then swimwear with our specialized swimwear spandex products. And last but not least, socks and legs. Also a very important category for all our products, not only Elastane, but also nylon and polyester. So that's a general instruction, a general overview. I hope it's fine for you and you get a little bit an idea of the company. So now let's talk about our sustainable solutions. So first of all, textile to textile. I think you have seen it here. You have heard a lot about it. It's super important for us. We are cooperating with the leading companies in that field. One example here is Ambercycle. So we announced it already last year. In terms of polyester, we are buying the textile-to-textile chips from Ambercycle, American-based company, and we are creating a latest polyester fabric on T2T level, which I learned even today, a very, very important topic for the industry. But it's not only Ambercycle. Also Loop Industries from Canada. It's another new partner, just announced a couple of weeks ago. Same story. We are cooperating with the company. We are buying the chips and we are doing creating and producing new products, new fibers from it. Regen spandex. So just staying on spandex. Regen spandex is our branding or our explanation, our version for recycled spandex. You have seen that Hyosung is a big company with 10 production units. So you can imagine that we have a lot of production waste. So we are using this production waste, collecting it, bringing it together, clean it up, and we are producing new spandex. And this is our Regen spandex. For sure, there are many different processes involved, but we are creating in terms of performance, in terms of pricing, a very competitive product. And this is very well received and very interesting for the market in all the categories you have seen. What is important if we're talking about sustainability? I think it is very important that we are proving that it is real sustainable and that third parties are giving us the certification. So you see our Regen recycled Elastane is RCS certificated. We can use a hang tag, and it's very important to prove that we are doing something good. And you can see the figure, the LCA number, 74.5% avoidance of carbon emissions. So I think this is a great achievement. We know it's still an oil-based product, but we are doing something to protect the environment. And this leads me to the latest innovation, and this is where we're really putting a lot of efforts in, and where we're counting on the support of the brands. It's our bio-based Elastane, and the beauty and the interesting thing is we are replacing oil, because the feedstock for all chemical fibers at the moment is oil, and we are replacing it with bio feedstock. not super difficult. It's a very technical process, but we are able to do this. And this is our bio-based Elastane. That's the first product and the biggest focus for our company at the moment. I'm just about to hand over to Robin to explain a little bit more, because as I said before, we will use for that, we know that there are many different solutions. We have one solution in place where we're using industrial corn. We are shifting this from next year on with our new Vietnam facility to a feedstock base of sugarcane. And that's a big new story. And this is where basically, as you can see, it makes the complete process much easier. We are producing everything in one place in our new facility in Vietnam, and the feedstock and the base for it is sugarcane. And I think now it's a point to hand over to Robin, because she will explain you a little bit more about our feedstock sugarcane, because you can imagine it's very important to explain and to prove that it is a good feedstock for our product. And let's hand over to Robin.
Thanks, Andreas. So yeah, I'm going to take you through a little bit more about this feedstock. I come from a background actually predominantly in the food and beverage sector, where sugarcane, sustainable sourcing has been going on for a very long time now, right? We're through multiple generations and iterations of sustainability. And I think coming here and having this partnership with Hyosung is such a great example of this cross-sector learning and sharing that is possible, both ways, of course. And so what we're able to do with our experience in sugarcane is take something that we've been working on for over a decade and actually apply it to a completely new industry. So a little bit more about sugarcane as a feedstock, why it really is a natural and kind of obvious choice as a feedstock. And I think one of the biggest things is just how widely it is growing, right? This is almost everywhere in the tropical world. 80% of global sugar comes from sugarcane. And sugarcane itself, you may think, well, sugarcane, sugar consumption, because of kind of, I guess, slowing kind of global populations, per capita consumption, it's not actually all used for consumption now, right? So a lot of it is going towards bio-based fuels, plastics and other areas. It's grown, I mean, yeah, in terms of the global land area, it's not actually as huge as other crops because it's so efficient. So this 2 billion tons is because the yield is so high. And I think efficiency is something that's really important when we talk about the feedstock, because of course, the less land that's needed to grow it, the more land that's available for other things. And I think one of the key things that comes up when you talk about any bio-based feedstock is, well, what about other land uses, deforestation, etc. And so these are really critical factors that to keep in mind. And actually, Brazil, everywhere else, one thing that is important for me to raise is that sugarcane, unlike palm, soy, and some other commodities, is actually not a particularly high risk. Not to say that risk is non-zero, and I'm going to explain in a bit more detail how we deal with those risks in a second, but it's actually a very well-established crop. The land area is increasing for this. So from a risk perspective, in that respect, sugarcane is great. It's also the efficiency side of things that I've mentioned just means that we've got so much to work with already. The technology advancement, etc., is huge in this sector. And quality, of course, is a really key aspect. So I think one thing that I've been asked a lot walking around, say, well, okay, well, what about the quality? Why is it any different? I think, Andreas, I'm able to say there is no difference in quality of the product. So what you would be buying is exactly the same, and all the way through to life cycle, end of cycle use, that applies, right? So that's a really key aspect of it as well. And that's also partly why it's sourced from Brazil for this particular supply chain. So we're also working in the longer term to even sourcing it more locally, but Brazil ultimately is where the best quality produce is coming from for now. From an environmental perspective, that's actually not a huge deal because most of the carbon footprint and other impact pretty much comes from the sourcing at farm level and then from the processing in the factory. But yeah, I think effectively Brazil really is the best place for your product to come from, and ultimately when it would be going into the clothes that you're making. The last thing I would say before I get into the VIVE program that I'm here to talk about as well is the livelihoods aspect. I think whenever you talk about a feedstock that's coming from a natural source, you have to think about the supply chain, the human rights impact, the due diligence processes, the governance, etc. This is really where the VIVE program comes in, and making sure that everything is done as should be, meeting global standards. But there's also a really amazing story to be told about sugarcane. So when I was, I guess, fresh out of university about 12 years ago, I went to Malawi for the first time, a huge sugar estate. I was living on that for about a year. And so I was thrust into the world of sugarcane, and for the first time really experiencing the economic impact of a crop like sugarcane on the local economy, job creation, etc. So I think just from a rural livelihoods perspective, sourcing from these bio-based materials, and in particular sugarcane, has a really great story to tell as well. So what about the risks, and how do we deal with those? And that really is where the VIVE program comes from. So you'll have come across many certification programs, and I know the textile sector has many as well. VIVE is a fully globally recognized sustainability program by over 100 food and beverage companies. It's recognized and utilized. So really, it's already very well established. The likes of Nestle and Coke and others are already using it, and Hyosung is a buyer supporting VIVE as well. Key things about it, so it's a fully holistic program. It covers governance, due diligence around human rights, deforestation, environmental practices, etc. And it also allows traceability across the supply, which I know is also very key for the sector. Now, a little bit more about the program and who owns it and how it's run. So I'm employed by this company called Zanaco, CZ, which is that little diamond in the corner. And we are a supplier to over 1,600 clients globally. So if you think of any major buyer of sugar and other commodities, we're probably somehow in that supply chain. We service company across that. So our model is quite unique in that we almost have a fixed fee. We provide the service and we share the profits and benefits with our clients. So a really transparent and I think very conducive model for collaboration across the supply chain with the likes of Hyosung and others. And we also have partnered with Interlink, who again, a global company that provides data solutions and sustainability solutions for the sector. And we together produce VIVE. So VIVE is a modular program. And what's great about that is that, as I mentioned, the sustainability aspect, right? So not only is the program good for farm level, and so we have the farm is verified as VIVE, but we also have the facility or factory along the supply chain. The shipping module is also ensures that at every stage on the supply chain, it's meeting those standards. Chain of custody is another. So literally anybody that is handling in some way the product has to make sure that they are VIVE verified. Great. So just to extend, I guess, the point I was making around the fact that it's a credible solution. A big part of what we deliver is that it has to be third-party verified. So we are not the ones that are going out there and marking our own homework, right? I think that's really, really critical. So we partner with the likes of these third-party verification partners and Interlink as well to make sure on an annual basis, there's an annual cycle that the farms, the factories, the facilities are checked that they're ensuring those key standards. We're also aligned to the likes of the science-based targets, which again, as with food and beverage and textiles, I know lots of companies are now aligning to these, excitingly having set very ambitious targets, the SDGs. And then the other key part about VIVE is that we are benchmarked to many other global programs. Here we've got a lot of the ones from the food sector, but also now that we're working with Hyosung to align and benchmark to key textile standards as well. So that's in the pipeline. And then another aspect of what we're doing is also we work with green financing. So a great thing about VIVE is that those producers and processors and factories that are VIVE verified actually have access to green funding and potentially other more beneficial concessional-based financing, which again is really key for the sector. So here's a hot topic for you, mass balance. And I don't know if this is something that you know much about, but one thing that whenever we're talking about sustainable supply and traceable supply, we have to be very transparent and open about what we can and can't track. So what's amazing about the VIVE program, as I've mentioned, is that we can verify each stage of the supply chain. However, for most bio-based materials in supply chains, what happens is that at various stages there's a commingling, which is why we have to work on a mass balance basis, so that any claim that is made is volume to volume, making sure there's no almost like double counting, let's say, of that claim. But what we can't necessarily claim is that every granule of sugar that we produce goes into the end granule of product, but we can verify and we can state that the source of that comes from the same place and that we have been able to trace the full process along. One thing that I guess is quite key in this case, because we're dealing with sugar, the end product and the end quality is exactly the same. So that perhaps also makes it a little bit easier, and I think why and we've been down quite a long journey in the food and beverage to say, can we fully segregate supply? And everyone loves the idea of it, but the cost is ultimately prohibitive for people to do that at this point. So one thing that we're exploring is actually supplying even more closely to your factory in Vietnam, aren't we? But quality is ultimately key, particularly in this sector. So quality always comes first. And from that perspective, that's where the Brazilian supply comes in. We don't, I should also say, particularly for those of you that are here and maybe looking for different products, we don't just verify sugar and its co-products and byproducts. We can effectively verify any raw material feedstock, so maybe something to bear in mind. And these are some of the things that we currently verify, but really because of the key themes, it's something that can apply in most instances. So what are some of the benefits that we have learned, particularly in the food and beverage sector, that apply to the textiles context? The way that we've used VIVE is for a number of things, a number of benefits that we found, but ultimately the verification of supply helps to build key partnerships along the supply chain. So I guess ours is a good case in point, but it becomes almost like the backbone and the basis for different conversations that go beyond procurement, beyond pricing, to how we can actually develop more resilient, robust supply chains that work for everyone. It's really helped a lot of our clients with cross-commodity reporting, sustainable development. Decarbonization is obviously a really key factor that, again, applies in fabrics, in food and other. And I'll get onto it in a little bit how we've done that. But effectively now our VIVE supply comes with an emissions factor that uses the primary data from the source, which is a pretty big deal to be able to get and to do well. So that's something that we've been working on a lot. I'm going to talk a bit more about regenerative sourcing as well later too. But as you can see, a host of good benefits from the program. Yeah, just to labour this point, because particularly when you're transitioning a brand into different industries, I think what's really key to show just some of the brands that already are publicly supporting our program. So you can probably see some brands here that you would recognize, some that are maybe smaller or that you don't know because they are themselves suppliers of others. But effectively, we work with most of the major food and beverage companies already, and they're sourcing through this program. Now, I've touched a little bit on decarbonisation and commitments, but the one thing I want to raise here is really around the science-based target commitments and some of the other commitments that companies in both fabrics, textiles, food and beverage are making. And just, to give you a bit of an idea, some of the key clients that we work with and some of their, not just their commitments, but also the impact of their current emissions. And I've taken from Coke and Nestle here, that they have made quite ambitious targets. So I think both net zero commitments, but Nestle have said they're going to be net zero by 2040. And they are going to reduce their scope 3 by 50%. I think that should say by 2030. So this is quite huge. And the challenge that they're facing is most of their supply, most of their emissions actually comes from out of their control, right? So it comes from scope 3, which is further upstream and downstream. And so what the great thing about VIVE and other programs is, and how we work with them and with Hyosung and others now, is to see how we can then implement a roadmap for decarbonisation. Now, it's probably no surprise to you that just by switching to sugarcane as a feedstock, you're lowering emissions by quite a lot. But we don't just really stop there, right? A big part of it is about having that baseline and then working with our suppliers to reduce the emissions further and further. I'm missing a slide, but I think that's fine. The slide was effectively going to show a little bit more about the evolving needs of clients and how we've responded to that. So another great thing about VIVE is that it is, because it's privately owned, we're very agile, responding to the needs of our clients. And so where the VIVE program started was in response to the need to say we are 100% responsibly sourced, right? So that's the starting point. But now with these commitments to net zero and more outcomes-based commitments, beyond that, we've had to adapt. So now we've got a few different offerings that, again, are in the pipeline for Hyosung products. The first of which is this VIVE Climate Action tool, which effectively is a tool that we use to capture all the data we need to give you an emissions factor. And that's something that we're working on and building out. And very soon we'll actually have a full product carbon footprint behind the product that goes into the textile sector. And again, probably needless to say, but alignment to all of the key third-party requirements and industry standards. And then the latest thing that we're working on, which is what I've been putting to the company around, is regenerative agriculture. So this is probably quite a new term for a lot of people. And what does the term mean and how will it be integrated into the Hyosung supply? I think the key thing to say about the switch from sustainable sourcing to regenerative sourcing is it's more about outcomes. So rather than projecting on the practices that a farm would need to adopt to make it sustainable, it's more about saying, well, how do we drive soil health? How do we drive improvements in emissions, in biodiversity, in water, in livelihoods? And then you give the agency actually back to the farm level to be able to identify what that looks like in the local context. So this is a big part of what we're building out, what the food and beverage sector has been building out, and also now working with the likes of the Textile Exchange and others to bring this to life. So that's kind of sugar through VIVE for Hyosung and for your bio-based elastane in a nutshell. But very happy to talk more and answer any questions. I don't know, Andreas, have you anything else to add?
Yeah. First of all, many thanks. It's again and again very impressive to hear about it, and I hope you got quite a good idea of what we are doing. It's important to mention that it is not the end of the road. There are different things we can improve. We are working on that, but I think it gives you an indication of Hyosung is really willing to innovate the market and to change things. And yeah. Therefore, many thanks for your attendance, and I wish you all the best at the happy hour. If any questions, please feel free to ask us. Take advantage from Robin and myself being here. Then I can just say many thanks.
Yeah, thanks everyone.